Welcome to the show, everybody. Thank you for downloading. My name is Pete Wright, and I'm here with Dane Christensen.
Hello, folks.
And Megan Strand.
Hey.
And we are the Naked Marketers. Once again, Naked Marketers, talking to you on the internets. How are you? I hope you're well. Thank you for joining us.
That was Mr. Rogers right there.
I know, wasn't it? A little
Awesome.
bit. I've been thinking about that because somebody.
How are you today?
I read some post where somebody on Fox News said that Mr. Rogers was the devil or something, was evil, because he was indoctrinating children to his soft way of life or something, and that everybody can be successful. And you know what? Not everybody can be successful. It turns out some of you will fail. And Mr. Rogers, that should have been his message. I mean, really.
Well, that's a happy way to start the show.
The guy,
today, Peter.
He spent his life trying to build up kids, and he's now dead. And you're going to start doing this?
Because he's old.
No, well, he's really old because he's dead.
Yeah, he's old enough to have died.
I miss Mr. Rogers.
Well, I love that. I hope that's a new tradition.
Do you know what?
So totally sidetracked.
I
think.
I'm not going to start.
I think every show should definitely start with, and how are you today, speaking to the audience, and I think we should build them up a little bit.
I'm breaking the fourth wall. That's what I'm doing.
Exactly.
This is what I want to talk about. First of all, if you want to find out about the show, you should go to thenakedmarketers.com, and you should also subscribe to the show in iTunes, which is a fantastic product.
And end that with, and I believe you can do it.
And I believe you're good enough, and you're smart enough. I have corrections or corrections and updates from last week's show, and I love
that we have corrections.
I know. See, that's growing up. Mac Apps Addict wrote on on the blog. He had a comment about Alltop because if you remember, Alltop is a new favorite site of mine, and it's a fantastic way to curate top stories of the week from in various category. Go to alltop.com. You can learn all about that, or listen to last week's show. Anyway, my big question was, can you? There's no place obvious in Alltop where you can burn out an RSS feed to add of your favorites to add to Google Reader. And it turns out, thanks to Mac Apps Addict, you can. He says, thanks for the reintroduction to Alltop, you can create an RSS feed by adding /RSS to the UR of any Alltop page. So
that is so awesome.
my.alltop.com/username/RSS drops you into an RSS feed that you can then use in Google Reader or NetNewsWire or anywhere, your favorite feed reader of choice. And the same thing works for categories. He says marketing.alltop.com/RSS gives you an RSS feed for the marketing category. It is just
Thank you for sharing.
Awesome.
That's so awesome. That makes it even better.
You know, we had another correction, or not a correction, another recommendation to check out. We had recommended Ecamm Call Recorder for Skype, which is the recording tool that we use for this show. Muika, M-U-I-K-A, Muika, recommends IM Capture for Skype, and I think I haven't tried it, but I want to throw it out there because I think it's a cross-platform tool. You can use IM Capture on Windows too. I think Ecamm Call Recorder is Mac only.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to make sure to get that out there in case any of our Windows-using friends would also like to record their Skype calls. Handy recommendation. Thank you, Mika. And that's it. So hopefully next week our corrections and thanks will be even longer than this week. Well, maybe not too much longer, but a little bit longer. On to the news. What has happened last week? Shall we begin?
It's a big week.
I know. Start us with something.
Well, I'm going to let you go on your little diatribe about Facebook, but Zuckerberg has come out, the CEO of Facebook, Mr. 26-year-old, has come out and in response to consumer feedback has, sort of made some statements about how they get it. And, and I think the sentiment around this entire little non-apology, as Newsweek calls it, is it's a little bit too little too late. And they just sort of proved they didn't understand what people were actually saying. So I'm going to let you talk about it a little bit more, Peter, because I know that you took it even more personally than some of us and suspended your own Facebook account. So.
Well, that was okay. I disabled my Facebook account for all of 3 days. And it was more of an experiment to just see what would happen.
It's kind of like a 7-year-old saying they're going to run away from home.
Yeah, it's exactly
and then it goes
like
to the
that.
Backyard.
It's exactly, you get into the inflatable balloon, and then you actually just go up to the attic. It's a I disabled it because, knowing full well that I'm going to be back on Facebook, and I have a lot of great connections on Facebook, and there's no doubt that Facebook is a valuable platform in the marketplace. It's annoying as hell. The problem I have with the statement is that, he comes out, he goes and he says, the number one thing we heard is that our privacy controls are too hard. They're too complicated. We were trying to make things, to give you this fine granularity of control. And what we've heard you say is that now the controls are too hard. And I find that disingenuous and untrue. It's not that the controls are too hard. That is a byproduct of a philosophical stance that they betrayed. That's what is at issue here.
And we don't trust you.
Is that right? Facebook made the privacy controls too hard as a byproduct of the fact that they sold out our private information. And so I live my life pretty much out loud. I mean, everything it's public. You want to find me, you can find me. I'm on all sorts of different platforms, from Google Buzz to Twitter to Facebook to my own website. And the lesson here is, for me, that the platform sold me out. And that's not a relationship that I can trust anymore.
You know, what I wonder, too, about this also, Peter, is that do you think that, and I'm not going to talk about their motivations behind why they did any of this, so let's just leave that to the side for right now. But do you think the fact that they waited so long to have any sort of response that anybody could even, resonate with at all, do you think that has to do with the trust thing? Do you know what I mean? Like, do you think if they changed their privacy settings and people were like, wow, we hate this sucks, and we think you're being slimy, and they came right out and said, you know what?
Really?
We're sorry.
Yeah, like if they came out and said, really?
We messed up.
Seriously? Okay.
No, I'm asking a question. Do you think
that... No, I know. I was saying that in quotes, as if I was Facebook, the personification of Facebook.
Okay. You did it well too.
Yeah, really? Do you think we did that hard? Really?
Yeah.
No. I think first of all, I totally understand their strategy, and Zuckerberg wrote Scoble and sent him this email saying, we're going to come out this week. This was last weekend, I guess, and he said, we're going to come out this week with a statement, and we wanted to wait until we actually had something to say about some changes that we were making. Right? That's why we didn't come out initially.
Okay, BP.
Well, really, I mean, that's it. And it kind of gets to what we're going to be talking about on our interview today, which is this idea of, you can't really assume that you have that kind of leeway from a PR perspective anymore. I mean, the expectation is, and in large part conjured by Facebook and the immediacy of real-time news and updates, you can't, if you are Facebook, assume that you have a week and a half, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month to get things right before you start talking about it.
Why would they come? Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Dan.
No, I was just going to say, isn't that the deep irony here? Because, when we talk about social media, we tend to talk about, in every instance, that it's just a new tool. I don't know. I mean, in some cases, we're really sort of employing the same, traditional, I don't know, what am I saying? The same traditional strategies, which are connect with your customer, communicate with your customer, develop your brand, develop trust, and some of the rules keep changing, which, as you just said, Pete, immediacy, like it's never been before. And so Facebook, yes, Facebook as a tool has help to create this environment that we live in and the expectations that we have. And when we talk about companies relying too much on a specific tool or the way they use a specific tool, that it's, we've got, Facebook, we've got Twitter, Delta Airlines with Twitter, they don't seem to be using it correctly, but they're using it. You have to put all of this into the context of how are you engaging with your customers, how are you building trust, how are you developing, friends, I guess. And so there seems to be this we are Facebook. In my opinion, you could kind of read into this that there's an over-reliance on a piece of technology or a tool and not the strategies to use it and what it is you're trying to develop and the relationships and really in this case on a corporate level, trust and trust with users and with advertisers, although they seem to be definitely concerned about trust with their advertisers. But with the users, I think there are a lot of weird sort of missteps and miscalculations here in sort of stepping back and I don't know, maybe even using some traditional PR, I guess, or how about I mean, they're apparently going to make $1 billion this year in revenues. There might be some money there for some advertising, right? I mean, when Toyota thought they were losing the trust of customers, that was a massive campaign that they've been rolling out on a lot of different levels. Facebook is sort of waiting a week to make a statement that not everyone's going to see, and they've got 500 million users now.
Yeah,
it's kind of there's a strange disconnect, and there's definitely an ironic twist to it, in my opinion.
It is. It's that same bit of just kind of weird irony that Facebook people. I mean, one of the videos I think was with what's his name, Brett. Oh God, this is gonna frustrate me. He's the guy who's the former founding developer, I guess, CEO of.
Yeah. I was just looking at that.
Of FriendFeed when Facebook bought FriendFeed, Brett Taylor, and before FriendFeed bought Taylor, he was out in public, right? I mean, he was a very prolific creator of content about his company on FriendFeed, and now he's under kind of the Facebook PR blackout, and you can't talk without permission anymore at Facebook. And I find that just really dark irony that it's a company that exists to help you live your life out loud and get all this information on you, and yet I wonder just how many employees at Facebook are allowed to be that public. And I'm totally speculating here, but based on my experience in PR, I would imagine not many. And, I have a couple of friends who actually work in Facebook, and their responses to me after a number of requests to be on this show is, I can't do these kinds of things. Our policy is I am not allowed to talk about the company. I am not an authorized representative. Well, it sort of flies in the face of some of this new of the rhetoric that Zuckerberg himself is putting out there.
Get over it. Yeah. It's all about there's no privacy is sort of his stance. Well, and I think it's going to be interesting to watch them because, as both of you point out, unless there's a serious shift at Facebook, I mean, what's going to happen to them? And it's sort of tragic in that they have, one of our news items today was about their payment platform, which is anticipated to be their next major revenue stream. I mean, they're well positioned to do really, really great things, but unless Zuckerberg stops being such a, I don't want to use the word I want to use on air, but he needs to grow up a little bit and look at his company a little bit more seriously as far as this whole customer relations piece. I mean, he's getting skewered left and right.
Well, that's the thing.
Not a good position to be in when you're that big.
It's very possible that things are going to be fine and that there are millions of people who could care less about any of this stuff. In fact, I want to read in just a second what Daniel Lyons had to say at the end of his story in Newsweek. But at the same time, the environment has definitely changed in the last couple of weeks in terms of the top tier publications that are really, going from a month ago, glowing reviews, this is the greatest thing since sliced bread, to, wow, this guy has some real issues.
And Congress.
In Congress, exactly. Right. Like there are some possible very serious threats. And I'm seeing articles in multiple places. I think we mentioned last week the Huffington Post had, a little like, here's what you could do, if you don't like Facebook. Well, Newsweek's now done that. And you're going to start to see, I think New York Times, I saw that not that long ago, and basically giving a lot of fuel for some of these potential Facebook competitors. So maybe things are fine. Maybe they're just huge and everything's great. And all these people feel pretty committed to it. But then again,
maybe not.
Maybe things really are very serious.
Well, and even those who, people who are not, apathetic to Facebook or want to quit Facebook, et cetera, as soon as they start seeing these other trusted sources saying, hey, did you know you can quit Facebook? At least plants the seed.
Yeah.
Right.
And, CNN is now reporting that the quit Facebook thing is bubbling. This is enough to get people thinking about things that they hadn't. But I think there's even a more sort of insidious problem that they face, and that is the way they handled this. I brought my account back because, I have clients, I manage pages. I can't quit Facebook right now. But I consider myself a member of a class of technologists that is aware of such things. And the fact is, I am now apathetic to Facebook. And before, I was not. I was an active proponent of Facebook, and now I don't really care so much about Facebook beyond what I do for my client work. So my first point of focus is no longer Facebook, and I am actively, insofar as I'm apathetic about Facebook, I'm actively looking for an alternative place. I'm spending more time on Google Buzz, for example. I'm spending more time on Twitter. I'm spending a lot more time on my own website and looking for ways to syndicate my website out to the various social sites. But Facebook is no longer the first place I go. And I think apathy is the most insidious thing that Facebook could have. Having 500 million users is great if you're watching is not so great if you're watching your percentage of those that are active users drop to.
That's a really good point. Dane, why don't you take us out of this little segment by reading the last line that you wanted to read from the...
Let me please. Yeah, it's so Daniel Lyons in Newsweek, the article title from just a couple of days ago is "Who Needs Friends Like Facebook? Not Me. Why Mark Zuckerberg and his social network should stop invading our privacy." So it's a real damning article, and it's got I don't know, it's a tough one, but here's the closing paragraph. To be sure, none of this will hurt Facebook. The company is expected to rake in $1 billion in revenue this year. The site has 500 million members, up from 400 million only 4 months ago. Most members are likely not aware of the recent privacy fiasco, and even if they were aware of it, they didn't care or wouldn't care. People love Facebook. Many spend hours each day on it. This scandal will be nothing more than a blip on Facebook's inexorable march toward a multi-billion-dollar payday. And it's all thanks to a sweet, idealistic kid who just wanted to make the world a better place and who communicates with the outside world via canned statements in his friend's newspaper. Gosh, it gives you shivers, doesn't it?
That's awesome.
Well, and it is awesome. And I think the paragraph before that first line is what we've been saying. That last bit, "I don't trust them at all," is the key part. That sort of sums up where that company is right now. So anyway, on to new and better things.
Well, I think it's a nice little segue as far as consumer behavior. The story about BP, Peter, that you were going to talk about.
This is just a short one. I think it's just worth putting in the back of your mind that BP is, largely responsible, depending on who you're talking to, for what is becoming the largest environmental incident in modern world history. And this is a company that, has, again, arguably not handled it well, not handled the response well, that the corporate relationships, the tools they're using, the things that they are employing are equally damaging to the environment and destroying the economy of the Gulf Coast, the seafaring economy of the Gulf Coast. And yet, what is the market response to, BP and their...
we cover our eyes.
Yeah, we sort of cover our eyes. So
still drive to the same gas
We
station.
do. I mean, it seems, and I think there's a context issue too. When you're driving your car, when we're watching the evening news, and you're looking at all of the dead animals and the fishermen out of work, and the 2,000 square mile oil slick that is taking over the Gulf, it's easy to let your heart bleed for it. When you're driving your car on the way to the grocery store and you need gas, and all you see is a big yellow sign, are you making the connection that BP is this company, and that the impact of what they have done to the environment in their inability to clean up the mess they made is that you're actually supporting that? Now, I'm not saying boycotts are always the way to go, and I think there are good people trying to figure out the right thing to do here. I think it's interesting that in this case, as mad as people are about Facebook, as the media is all up in line about Facebook, that there isn't more of a discussion about a potential BP boycott.
Yeah.
So maybe that's a total non-issue to people. It sounds like that's kind of a snoozer. So I'm going to go ahead and move on.
It's just such a deep issue that you could spend a whole show talking about consumer behavior and that covering your eyes syndrome. So
anyway, so this was a good. It's an AP article. I found it in the Chicago Sun-Times, just about how the Gulf oil spill has yet to affect consumers' gas choices. So we'll post that in the notes. Nike World Cup ad. We should talk. We should just. We need to. We're going to post a link to this we're going to post it on the website. It is a really beautiful ad. It's another in just a string of hits from Wyden and Kennedy. A 3-minute ad that even if you are not a soccer fan, it will have you out of your seat. It's a beautiful piece of film.
Well, and I think the story too is that they've gotten 9.6 million as of an hour ago, 9.6 million views on this YouTube video. And I believe that's a record for Nike. And they've come out and said, this is the best video we've ever done. Well, that Wyden and Kennedy has ever done. But so that's the other story behind it. Not only is it a cool video, but it's also setting some pretty big records as far as viewership.
Definitely worth checking out. So go to the website and look at that. We will post it. And let's see. Anything else do we have to cover in the news? Are we out of stories? Did we do that?
Did you want to talk about that road trip thing or not?
Oh, yeah. We should talk about the road trip. This is an interesting campaign. It's a follow-up to it's Microsoft's Kin campaign. If you haven't seen the Microsoft Kin, it is it's a new Microsoft Windows phone.
It just makes me laugh when you say that. It just makes me laugh.
Well, it almost sounds like a joke.
It does.
Microsoft has kind of become an also-ran in the phone market. Nobody's really they haven't been able to generate any real significant buzz in mobile yet, in the massive wake of Google and Android and of the iPhone, which is also going to be trying to make a big splash this summer. But they do have this campaign, which I think brings up some interesting implications, right? It's this road trip campaign. The original road trip was they sent this girl Rosa. They gave her a kin.
How old was she? She's like 16 or something, right? I mean, she's pretty young.
Is she that young? I don't think
she looked young in the video.
She looks young, but I think she's got to be older than that.
All right,
in her 20s or something.
Whatever.
Anyway, so they do these ads where she takes her kin and she goes around the country to meet all of her Facebook friends or her social network friends, and do these little interviews about them, and they're creating this sort of dramatic theme of who your friends are, and that's their thing. Are your Facebook friends really your friends? And it's an interesting campaign. Have you guys seen the videos?
No, I was just reading about it.
I've not.
And now it's a contest. You can enter to win a kin journey.
A kin journey, and you can travel around and meet all your Facebook friends. And I think it presumes kind of an.
I want to meet my Twitter friends. I don't have that many Facebook friends I don't know.
Yeah, well. That sort of says it, right? I mean, that friends doesn't mean quite what it used to.
Stop laughing, Dane.
Well, but maybe you have friends you don't care about, but they live in really cool places.
But I know who they are. The point is I've met them before.
Well, okay.
Oh, I see what you're saying. You're trying to work the system a little bit.
Listen to you. Listen to Dane. Yeah, I know your friends, and now I'm just using them.
Yeah.
I'm going to friend some people in Hawaii.
See,
well, they should, and they should. That's right. I only have friends in Hawaii. Now, I think it's an interesting campaign. I think you guys should check out the video because it would make it a more interesting conversation.
But not buy the device. Is that what you're saying?
No, there are all sorts of better phones. Oh, there's a world full of better phones out there than the Microsoft
your point
can.
was, Peter, that your Facebook friends aren't really your friends. I mean, wasn't that your point?
Well, okay, so I guess I have a new definition of friend, right? And this is my new proposed definition. I'm going to submit this to the standards body.
You should.
That these are people that create content online that I am interested in consuming, and so I call them my friend, and I hope that they reciprocate, but they don't need to. And I think the old version of the word friend meant, I know you and you would know me in a lineup, or more than that. You would know me because we went to school together, or, we broke bread together someplace, or, we're blood brothers or spit brothers or whatever. You ever spit in your hand like baseball players do, whatever that is?
Or I go to criminal lineups a lot.
Yeah, well, you could do that too. So you see what I'm saying? Like, I think this is kind of a changing definition of friend, and I think it's interesting that they built a campaign on this term.
But I have to say that, and I don't like the fact. I'm telling you, this says young girl, and I'm telling you, she looks like she's 16. I don't like the fact that they have a 16-year-old going around the country. I think that's creepy. But I have to say, from my own personal Twitter usage and the people that I've sort of met online, I've been trying to meet some of them in person, and it has been so awesome for me just to kind of meet these people in person. The people that I'm really liking on Twitter, I'm actually liking in person, and I don't think that's a bad thing. I mean, granted, I'm in a very sort of small little niche in what I'm talking about on Twitter, but so maybe these people are kindred spirits to begin with, just based on the content. But yeah, I mean, I had a conversation yesterday with somebody that is in Vancouver, and we follow each other on Twitter. And he goes, the cool thing about Twitter is that really the people I like online are the people that I like in person too. And I think that's pretty cool.
Now, Megan, a word of caution here. You be careful.
I'm not
be careful with these people you're meeting.
All these Twitter people.
I'm just saying.
Thank you, Daddy.
Oh,
we care about you, Megan.
That's awesome.
So the moral of this is don't buy a kin and be careful who you meet on Twitter. That last 5 minutes.
But do it anyways.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think we should let's go ahead and up the smarts. Let's bring on our guest of the week. I didn't even mention that we have an awesome guest in the beginning of the show. I was so busy talking about Mr. Rogers. We have a fantastic guest. Maria Ogneva is joining us. She is
last name one more time, please.
Ogneva.
Okay. I thought you may have just mumbled through it. Go ahead.
No. I mumbled through it because it makes me sound more Russian.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, she's. I'm a big fan of the Russian.
I thought you were trying to avoid having to say it out loud in a clear enunciation. So
no, I was speaking like a native who doesn't speak Russian.
I wouldn't know.
I found her on. She had written an article on Mashable. It turns out she is the director of social media at Attensity, formerly Blog Biz 360, and she's going to join us in just seconds to talk about social CRM. Our very special guest on the show. We're so excited to have her on the show, Maria Ogneva. Maria, am I saying your name right? First of all, did I sound like a Russian?
It's close enough. You did not sound like a Russian, but it was better than probably 95% of the people that attempted.
95%. See, you guys don't think I can do accents.
You are in the 95th percentile.
So you should give yourself a pat on the back for sure.
I should. I will make sure to tweet it later.
Make sure to tweet.
Maria, you let's see. You do so many things. I don't even know quite how to introduce you. I discovered you when literally tripped over an article that you had written for Mashable that just went live this week, called "Why Your Company Needs to Embrace Social CRM," and that. That really struck me because I think it's a concept that I think is worth discussing, and I hope that our audience gets something out of this because to me, instinctively, it helps us link, the process of running a business, which equates to communicating and selling products, to this whole new world of social media. So we want to talk about that. But you do a whole lot more than just write for Mashable, right? Can you tell us a little bit about what you do day to day? You wake up, you have some coffee.
Yeah, and then I do podcasts.
Do some podcasting, right?
And I teach people how to say my name.
You're sort of a social media dilettante. That's a great way to live your life.
So actually, I don't write for Mashable. It's just something I do, probably like once a month, because, I think it's important to bring these notions of, social CRM and these kind of insider topics, right? That are insider to analysts and companies like mine, which I'll talk about in a second, to just the general social media population, because what's going on right now is social media is growing up. Right, it's getting adopted by businesses. I don't think anyone really needs to be sold on the value of social media as much as they were in the past. Right, businesses understand that it's a huge force to be reckoned with. The way that we talk to each other has changed completely. The way we consume and share information is completely different, and this social customer has emerged. And actually, I have a white paper that's coming out shortly on exactly that. To answer your question, I enjoy kind of writing articles that kind of bring these somewhat complicated subjects to folks, and to help them understand what the heck this is. Is social CRM just another buzzword? Is this something I need to be concerned about, and why? So it's part of my job, or the part of my job that I've created for myself. What I do is I am a social media director for a company called Attensity. So a little bit of background. I was working for Biz360, which was a monitoring and measurement company. So think of like Radiant 6, Scout Labs, Sysomos, Biz360, right? That's the legion of social media monitoring companies that enterprises and small companies alike use to help them make sense of all of this social media information, right? Because if you're a big brand like Pepsi and people are tweeting about you and Facebooking and blogging and discussing on discussion boards, right? That's just this huge amount of information. You need to figure out like what the heck to do with it, right? So monitoring companies have come into fashion, I guess, over the past couple of years. And I think the next step is like, okay, so monitoring is becoming more of a commodity. What do you actually do with the data, right? So you have 10,000, 10,000 mentions of your brand. That's great. But how do you actually take action, right? How do you engage? So this is a interesting inflection point where monitoring companies are now starting to merge with other companies.
Which is what happened, right? Attensity
Exactly.
bought Biz360.
Exactly. So we got bought by Attensity, which was, has been in business for a while, has been doing deep semantic analysis on unstructured data, but that data typically tended to be within the enterprise. So, emails, anything that's free text.
SharePoint kind of.
Exactly. So what they're really good at, or I should say we, are really good at is extracting data from a message, say it's an email or whatever it is, and saying, this is a question, or this is a request, or this is feedback, and it should go to this department or this person within this department, and then this kind of question should go to this person, and so on and so forth. So it creates like this decision-based kind of rules engine that allows you to get the whole enterprise working together to kind of help these customers. So that's kind of a natural marriage, right, between a monitoring company and a deep semantic analytics routing capabilities type of company. So together on our integration, what we're building is exactly that, right? The ability to go out and cover the huge breadth of social media messages, because Biz360 covers YouTube, right, which is the second biggest search engine in the world. Covers all the blogs, Twitter, Google Buzz, that's the microblogs, discussion boards, forums, which includes LinkedIn, Facebook, MySpace, and it's a lot of information.
So help me kind of pull back the curtain a little bit. So what you guys are doing is you're going in, you're distilling a whole bunch of data out of the conversations that are going on all of these social networks, and then so your customers will buy a subscription and be able to get a dashboard that tells them what's going on. Is that how that works?
Exactly. So if I'm the customer and I say I want to look at this particular keyword and I want to track it every day, I want to look at myself, I want to look at my competitors, not only are we going to give you the reporting capability and the list of the most important kind of happenings within that keyword, but we're also going to give you the tools to engage, right? So automatically routing messages, whether it's to you, whether it's to, your product team, if it's feedback, right? But you as a social media person are kind of the hub of all the activity.
Well, and then you also have a customer profile as well that's also collecting all that information from different sources, correct? So that anybody within the company can then click on a user profile and see what the conversation has been. Is that accurate?
Absolutely. That's a huge part of what social CRM a good social CRM platform is supposed to do. The ability to take my data as a social customer and relate that data back to whatever internal CRM data the company had on me, right? So if I'm flying an airline and I have a reservation, a flight that I'm taking today, and then I tweeted them, the system should like cross-reference and be like, okay, so Maria, here she is, and here's her reservation, and here's her phone number, and here's her email. So all of that data kind of goes to the same place. So regardless of who within the organization looks at me and interacts with me through whatever channel they're interacting with me, are always on the same page.
All right. Now,
so
you actually, I want to talk about this as a case example, because you wrote a blog post that, frankly, had me in stitches. About your experience with Delta. Can you just walk through what happened there? Because it's too good not to talk about.
Okay. So I was actually stuck in the volcanic ash cloud in Europe, and I couldn't get out. And, I tried to, and I understand, it was kind of major mayhem, chaos all over. I tried to get out on my original airline, which was Delta, and I couldn't, and they were just not giving me the proper information that I needed. And there was, the first person that I called would say, "Oh, we can put you on a flight next week, or we can put you on a flight on Saturday." And like each day that changed, and I'm like, okay, what exactly is going on? And I knew other flights were leaving, so I was like, well, can't you put me on your partner airline? Like, what's going on? So I wasn't getting anywhere like in person or on the phone. So I figured
through their channels, they
channels.
Tell you need to call these people, and you did that. And
yeah, exactly.
Nowhere.
So I wasn't getting anywhere. So the way that I see Twitter is that it's not just a way for you as a company to say, okay, so Mr. Smith, you need to call the 800 number. Mm-hmm. No, I mean, if you're working through the Twitter channel with your customer, you need to kind of work behind the scenes, right, with whatever department you need to kind of help this person, because probably they have talked to other channels, or they may be talking to several channels at once, right? Or maybe they just have a strong preference for Twitter, or maybe they're not in a place where they can call, and all they can do is send an SMS message to Twitter, right? So we're going back and forth, and they kept sending me to the website or the 800 number. It's not really their fault. Everyone's kind of new to Twitter, but best practices would actually dictate that you take this customer information and automatically, it should be relating to what's in your database on me, Maria, right? And then help me activate the resources within your own organization to help me, instead of sending me back to the place I came from. Because basically that was just going around in circles, and I ended up in the same place I was.
Well, and what was so funny about it is, and again, I mean, you're right to be a little bit delicate with Delta, because it seems like, everybody is new to figuring this out, and not everybody can be Zappos, and we get that. But it was, I mean, the funny part is, it was almost as if they have a template for tweets. It says, thank you for writing us on Twitter. We love you too. Please call our 800 number. I mean, it just over and over and over again. How many times can you read thanks for your tweet before it means nothing?
Right.
And that's sort of what I was getting at it. But what I think the point illustrates is something much deeper and much more important if you are going to embrace some sort of a social CRM strategy, right? Which is the fact that there's a lot more going on in the back end of these organizations, particularly huge organizations like Delta, that you really need to consider to get your customer service, your social service, and your actual the function of the organization, like, for example, reservations, talking to one another. And Delta seems like may not have made that leap yet and actually getting all of these areas talking to one another. And that's an important thing, I think, to recognize. And to bring it back down to an earlier point, I think, at least when I'm talking to my clients, I mean, there's this real disconnect between why we need social media to actually engage with our customers and why we may assume that social media is just for, customer or just for company ego posting. Those are two very different things. Can you talk a little bit about how do you guide, when you're talking to organizations trying to kickstart a CRM strategy, social CRM strategy, how do you get them to talk integration?
That is probably the most important point. And if you were to take one takeaway from today's conversation, this should be it. Social CRM, it's not a tool. That's kind of how, traditional CRM got a bad name because people were not recognizing the importance of processes and kind of looking within your organization to understand, how are you going to handle this process with the resources that you have. And instead, it was just like, okay, let's try this tool. Okay, it didn't work. Okay, let's try this other tool. And you're just going to spend tons of man hours and tons of money pursuing tools, and you're still not going to be anywhere. Until you get your culture to the right place, and until you get the right processes and the right human resources to kind of execute on those processes, you shouldn't even think about tools. Right. So you need to sit down. You need to, first of all, make sure that you're in the social media thing for the right reasons. Right. Because as you mentioned, for you to sit there on Twitter and use it as a one-way broadcast of your messages to people and, be like in this race to amass as many followers as you can, you're going to fail because that's not what this medium is for. It's a conversation medium. So you're there to build relationships, and if people ask you for help explicitly, of course, give it and try to do it as much as you can, and try to not pay as much attention to how many followers somebody has. The tendency is to, help the loudest people with the most followers first, because everybody's afraid of like the bad PR fallout, like Kevin Smith and Southwest Airlines.
Another great example, though.
Another great example. So there's this fear, right? So but what I'm saying is that you should try to help as many people as you can. That aside, that's, you're probably not going to be able to help 100%, but that's a good goal. And you need to be there, to help, but even more importantly, to collaborate, right? You need to create a relationship with your customer that helps you make better products so that they don't have as many complaints, so that they feel kind of as part of you, right? Like your brand is their friend. And that's kind of the goal that you should have, not talking at people, but talking with people, co-creating, right? You're chilling with your buddy and you're making this awesome product and you're listening to feedback and you're helping. And that's kind of how you should approach it. Mm-hmm. So first of all, the very first step is that you have to make sure you understand that and that everyone within your organization is aligned as far as what social media is going to do for you and what it's not going to do for you. Right? And only when that cultural kind of breakthrough that comes from education, first and foremost, right? So only when that breakthrough happens, then you can sit down and talk about, okay, so when we have a crisis, what does the flow look like, right? So the information that cascades from, social media, whether you use a platform like Attensity, you have this cascading information going to a particular department and to somebody else. Like, what does that process look like? The tool is not going to build that for you. Right. You have to go build it for yourself, right? You have to put together a task force. I mean, this is stuff that I do within my own organization, right? So you put together a task force.
You're talking about lobbying the right people in the organization to actually man these tools, right?
Exactly. Because without that, I mean, if you're just a social media person, I mean, that's great, but you can't really do all this work by yourself. And you shouldn't, because you're not equipped to help out on every front. You don't know everything. There's so much knowledge that still resides within silos. So your first job as an organization is to break down these silos, because social media doesn't know silos. As a customer, I don't care if your customer service or if your reservations or if your product. I want to talk to you, right? So you better come to the table with what I need you to come to the table with.
Right.
So processes, task force, take one person from each department if you're the social media person and work with them. Understand, like, when this happens, when customer says this, what do we do? Where does it go? Where does it go after that? What is the workflow? And only then talk about tools.
Okay.
That was
Dane, you had something?
Oh, I did. First of all, I love the archetypal reference of co-creating. That one's going to stick with me for a while. I like how you reference that. I also, Maria, in something I was reading that you had written, you talked just a little while ago about you're kind of referencing, you're referencing companies' reliance on tools, but your context really is kind of a corporation or an enterprise or organization's what's the word? Traditional thinking about either tools or building their own brand. And one of the things you said was that you see companies needing to change from defining the brand for the customers to understanding how the customers perceive the brand, and that is the brand. Can you talk just a minute about that?
Absolutely. So, I mean, that's a huge change that came with social media and the customer becoming the social customer. The customer doesn't really care what you say your brand is. Like, it's not relevant, right? We fast forward through TV ads. We just don't care when you talk at us. What we do care is what our friends within our social network are saying about that brand. So to me, my understanding of Starbucks or Apple product. So, take whatever brand you want. It's shaped by what people closest to me are saying, right? So the value has now been transferred onto, people close to me, like their opinions, their views. And only then do I go to like external opinion sites when I'm, contemplating a big purchase. And then I see what people are saying there. But I don't even care like what the brand is telling me anymore. So your brand, it's no longer what you say, it's what your customers say, and you're not going to be able to control that. So if you want to control, just give up. The best thing that you can do is direct the conversation. You're never going to control it, but by being people's quote unquote friend in social media, instead of talking at them, talking with them, the process of co-creation, that's how you become friends, quote unquote. By being their friend, you can be a better brand in their eyes. And that's really kind of the only way to do that these days.
Well, and what's interesting is you kind of talk about, needing to maybe train certain organizations to understand this new dynamic. And when, of course, all along that's been the case, without social media, it still, I believe, was the case that companies felt they were creating a brand versus listening to the customers. It sounds like, the opportunity really is to say that maybe nothing's really changed, but we have the opportunity now to listen and to understand how we're being perceived, regardless of what we thought we had control over.
Absolutely. So, word of mouth has always been the number one marketing engine. And if you didn't know that, I don't know what your problem is. But yeah, but the thing about before versus now, digital word of mouth versus in person, is that this one you can measure and you can track it. The other one, people are saying stuff about you. You're not going to know what it is and who they are and what they're saying about you, except for in focus groups. But they're not going to tell you the truth anyway in a focus group, right? So, there was that disconnect because the brand, was always like, what do I think of it as well? What do my friends think of it? But there was always a huge gap, a huge disconnect, because there was no way for the brands and customers to kind of meet in the middle, right? But now we have that opportunity to do that. And also one other important thing about a brand in social media is something that's overlooked. Your employees are a huge part of your brand, right? Which is why proper social media education and best practices are going to be so key. You should encourage your employees to use social media, whether they do it under your brand moniker or whether they identify, in their Twitter name that I am Maria from Attensity or whatever, or I'm just Maria.
Mm-hmm. And can I just...
You're always going to be, representative of that brand, right, online and offline. You go to the bar and you talk to somebody, you're still the representative of the brand. So you want to make sure that people understand that. And you want to empower people and make sure that they know that you trust them to make the right decisions. So.
And I know Peter's got a thought here. I just wanted to mention that with regard to what you're saying right there, I just loved how you dropped in there, more or less, and also, so as you're doing that, and that point is very true, and involve the employees, and you kind of said it, and watch out for the sales guys and their Twitter spam, which I thought you didn't quite say it that way, but I just have a lot of experience working with the sales folks and organizations, and it's kind of, when you're talking about creating a new culture, bringing all the employees into it, and especially give a little attention to the salespeople.
Well, and that's the next question, right? I mean, it's one that was very important to me from the start because, the real brass tacks of social CRM is, can you illustrate to company leaders how there is a direct connection between all the things we're talking about, improved process, improved engagement, to driving sales? How do you get these two things to meet in the middle and cause a transaction? What are your thoughts on how you coach companies to make this change? Otherwise, it's just, I can yell on Twitter all day long. Right.
So interesting point and very, very complex. How much time do we have? So
you have 37 seconds.
I actually don't coach companies myself, right? Sure. But I work as a social media director. So, it is my job to bring awareness to the market and to speak about this stuff openly, from what I know, from what I do myself at my company. So I drink my own Kool-Aid, right? So, but I don't per se sit there with companies and say, okay, you need to do this. Anyway, just getting that out of the way. How I think to align the long term and the short term is what I think you're asking. And correct me if I'm wrong. That's a very, very tough thing. I have to go through the same thing within my company, right? Because certain parts of the organization want more immediate results, right? And it's that tension between marketing and sales. That's not just in social organizations, but in every organization I've ever worked with, because I've worked on both sides, right? I worked in sales and I worked in marketing. So I've seen it from both sides. It's this tug of war. Hey, marketing, what is all this, long-term brand vision crap that you're building? I need sales. I need quota. I have quota at the end of the month. What are you going to do for me?
Right.
And then marketing is like, whoa, sales guys, slow down, don't go out there, bullying customers into signing contracts. That's bad for the brand, right? And that's kind of the conversation that happens in every organization.
Sure.
So I think when you're talking to, people who are in charge of departments, alignment, again, is key, right? You have to align their priorities so that they understand what's in it for them. So I would sit down with my own sales force and I educate about social media, and I say, these are some best practices. It's probably not best for you to go out and say, hey, do you want to buy my product? The minute that somebody says a keyword that you're tracking, right. Probably not a good idea. But do you want to start chatting with that person and see if you can become useful? Absolutely. So it's kind of refocusing of the mentality from, instead of going for the kill, you have to build a relationship, and you have to set expectations correctly, right? You have to understand and make sure that people understand within your organization that this stuff is going to take time. It's like a cocktail party, right? You can't walk into a cocktail party and expect to sell your stuff right away. And you're not going to do that. You're not going to walk in and be like, buy my product, buy my product. It's the same kind of mentality. And I think when I talk to my sales organization in those terms, people get it, right? And also like the opportunity for client research. If you know how to mine the social media wealth of information, you can actually learn so much more about your clients than they ever could tell you. Right? Like if you know what to look for and if you can kind of read between the lines, that just makes you a stronger salesperson.
Well, and that's often, I think, one of the first recommendations, right? Is don't start yelling on Twitter yet. First, try and figure out if you can see if it's a good research tool for you.
Absolutely.
If there are people talking about your brand on in the social networks, maybe that means it's part of a discussion that you should be involved in.
Absolutely. So taking it to the level of, the C-suite, they want to see numbers. You're absolutely right. So what you have to do is be very diligent about measurement, right? So you have to develop these programs. For example, I got 5 members of the sales team on Twitter, and kind of at the end of 3 months, these were the results. These are kind of the new clients that we're now engaged with, and we've done this many demos and this many sales. And you have to put systems in place to help you track your social media activities. And because not everything is going to result in a sale, or not everything is going to result in a sale within the next 3 years, right? It's about a relationship. So that's the very tricky thing about social media, is that your social media activity, whether it's sending tweets, commenting on blogs, and being involved in the ecosystem in some way, does not always map, or almost never maps, to a revenue event very neatly, because there are like 5 different things that are going to happen right between then and now. So you have to have, this is one of the problems that social CRM is solving. It's helping you track all that data across all these different social and non-social channels, right? So you can actually track this one person throughout their history with you, and see if they purchased. And then, you just kind of do your numbers and see like this kind of customer converts, and, paint a full picture. So
yeah, one of the things we talked about earlier in in this show, I'd love to get your just brief opinion as we wrap up our time together, is in this perspective, what's been going on with Facebook and the privacy, the internal privacy battle that's going on Facebook. Now, I know, whatever your position is on privacy and Facebook and living out loud and all of that, that can be a religious argument. Has Facebook damaged their own brand in how they have actually handled this issue?
I think so. But I kind of feel bad for them in a way, because, as you said, privacy, what the heck is privacy, right? This could be a religious argument. Privacy doesn't exist, right? And every piece of content that you put out there, you should treat it as the front page of New York Times, because guess what? Like, it doesn't go away, right? It's always when someone Googles you, they can find stuff about you. So you have to be proactive, first of all. And because people are going to create content about you, just like a brand, just like a business, just like Pepsi, people are going to create content about me, the Maria, on the web all the time. So it's up to me to actually proactively create content that I like, that's reflective of my brand. So that being said, a lot of people don't understand privacy, right? So like we, in the marketing, social media sphere, we understand that, and we conduct ourselves accordingly. A lot of people don't understand it, right? And then now, all of a sudden, they saw that Facebook is doing something to their privacy, and they don't completely understand what's happening. And so they, that's bad for the brand. And I almost feel like, okay, Facebook, I think, messed up in a way. Like, they should have made things more explicit, and they should have spent a little more time educating people about, what they're doing and how they're changing things. Like, I'm in the social media industry, and sometimes I didn't even know what's going on with my account. Like, I had to go in and check everything. But not everybody has the wherewithal to go in and check, so that makes people angry.
Right.
So I think we're taking it out on Facebook, because that's kind of
they are the vessel for disruption right now. I mean,
absolutely.
It doesn't. We've sort of become the Facebook show, so I don't want to delve too deeply in it. And we have wrapped up a wonderful discussion on tools and techniques, and so appreciate your time joining us and talking about what you do, and the importance of measurement. I think we get so lost, as marketers in new shiny stuff in the social media world, where historically we're really quite adept at measuring, and because there is such an unknown in how you measure engagement and how you measure impact using social media tools, I think it's just so great to see such robust tools coming out that actually help us do that. So
absolutely. Absolutely. One thing about measurement is, instead of just measuring, you have to have internal alignment. You have to sit down and understand what your organizational goals are, and from there, what are your departmental goals, and from there, what are your social media goals, because they're going to be driven by what the overall goal is. So for me, for example, my goal is to increase awareness. So guess what? What do? I write articles for external entities. I make sure I produce a lot of content. I speak, and try to be kind of on the forefront of discussions, and it works, right?
Sure.
And now people know who Attensity is and BIS 360 is and stuff like that. So, but if your goal is to, reduce your customer care costs while increasing engagement, you want to take some money out of the call center and put it into Twitter engagement or something like that, then you're going to have very different goals, right? Your goals are to answer as many tweets and messages as you can. So you really have to look within yourself, because the tendency, again, is to over-rely on the tool and to over-measure. But sometimes you're measuring stuff that you don't need to.
Right. That's a very good point. That is certainly a good punctuation on the discussion. Where would you, if folks want to learn more about you and follow your social media sphere, where would you like us to point folks?
Probably the place where I'm the most active and the most reachable is on Twitter. You can find me as The Maria. That's THE Maria. And, I'm also on Facebook, LinkedIn. I hang out on industry blogs and comment. I write my own blogs and stuff like that.
And your blog is terrific, and we will certainly point people there too. It's great to have you join us and share a little bit about what you do. Thank you so much for your time. I hope you come back and join us again in the future.
I would love to. Thanks so much for having me.
Thanks, Maria.
Thanks, Maria.
Thank you.
That Maria, she's charming. That's one of those things. Can I say something about being charming?
And she's
Please.
a woman, which makes her awesome.
Oh.
Thank you, Maria, for being the first woman guest on the show.
We didn't celebrate that.
To tell her that. I thought about it. Yeah.
But that makes us seem petty.
Well, and also I didn't know if we wanted to draw attention to the fact that after this many shows,
Unlike,
this is our first female.
Embarrassingly, boys.
Yeah, that's right. We don't want to draw attention to
trying,
it.
Though.
Let's talk more about it. No, but let me talk about charming, because I think we forget about this, and I think it's so important, and I just want to talk a little bit about my experience. I found Maria on Twitter as well and messaged her on Twitter to invite her to the show. She responded very quickly and very kindly in complete sentences, and responded through direct messages and then on Skype. And I found her, she is really adept at building a relationship with someone through the keyboard. And I think that's really important, because most people can't. unless you know them previously, if you're meeting somebody for the first time on Skype or on Twitter, sometimes it's hard to really get through that barrier that says, I want to be approachable. I want to have a conversation with you, but I don't know how to do it in a way that makes me come off as charming and kind and welcoming and engaging in this medium. And I think, I think there are people who really can do that and celebrate it. Maria is one of those. She's just very engaging to type with. And I think it's something we can all think about when you're engaging with people online. Just, let some of that charm shine through and build those closer relationships with people. It is a real skill.
Well said.
So anyway, that was great, and I think it really highlights some of what the conversation with Maria really highlights some of what what we've been talking about, and it's just great to see these tools, hitting the market, growing up. Exactly. Now, one of the things we didn't talk about was because Attensity, Blog 360, they're kind of for small businesses. They're a little expensive. If you're trying to keep your overhead low, it's kind of expensive to get into this. They're designed for enterprise, and it shows there's this big break, this big split between enterprise tools and tools available to to the rest. And
as being a rooter for the underdog, it makes me a little bit sad.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you still have things like Google Analytics and Hootsuite.
I know, and you can still do it.
And
my question for her that maybe we can get a follow up on it in the future is where's the tipping point where you once you've mapped the process and the flow that she was talking about, like when do you really need a tool or you're going to be in trouble? Right. That was one of my questions. So for another show. For another show, indeed. Well, should we talk about tools? Yes.
Let's do that.
Talk about your tool.
Well,
Peter,
I loved, I got the email from Google that it was small business something or other.
Month.
Is it a whole month of small business awareness?
It's either a week or a month. It's more than a day.
We're excited about Small Business Hour.
I didn't know that it was.
There's all sorts of weird people doing stuff around it. But
see, we should probably know more about that.
This, yeah.
Well, we don't. Let's go ahead and hang a flag on it. But what we do know is Google Search Stories is a really, it's an interesting little gimmick that got me thinking about the tools that exist already in our bag of tricks and how we are using them. The gimmick is they send this email and they say we have this search story creator where you can go in and you fill out these 7 fields, and those fields are search fields. So you can type in I type in Pete Wright in one of them, and I say do a web search for Pete Wright, and then do an image search for Pete Wright, and then do a search for fifthandmain.com and the Naked Marketers, and run all these searches, and then the tool itself puts it together in a 30-second commercial that highlights your search results. And it seems like it seems like a really silly thing. When I say all this out loud, it seems really silly. Why would anybody do this? But I did it, and I posted it on my website. It's my little search story, so you can see all of my search results when you search for me. You get this, and it has funny music.
I was just going to say, the music is very, makes you want to stand up and march.
It sort of does, doesn't it? And, I could have
or
done
wave
scary.
A flag or something.
I could have done scary music that would have made you want to hide in a closet. I could have done, action music that would make you want to drive your car off a ramp.
Music? What did you select?
I could have done comedy. I did comedy music.
I would have thought it would have been like Patriot or Die or something.
I tried, but it was too much. It was too much to go with Google search results. I think you can only really have comedic music with Google search results. Anyway, that's not really the point of this exercise. The point is they got me thinking about use of other Google tools. They did a handy little bit of lobbying in this email. After you get through the gimmicky part, you go to google.com/economic impact, and you can see a Google map with their little bubbles, data bubbles, on all the different states throughout the U.S. And when you click on one of them, you get the little Google pop-up that has rich data in it. Like, for example, in Montana, a little chat bubble pops up, and it says Google generated $48 million of economic activity for 4,000 Montana businesses, website publishers, and nonprofits in 2009. And then you click on View and Download, and it opens a Google Doc, a public Google Doc case study discussing in more detail the revenue that Google helped generate in Montana, and a little case about a customer that Google has helped. An advertiser. You get a little case study on an advertiser and a photo. Now, whatever you think of Google's lobbying approach, I happen to think it's pretty slick. Their use of their own tools that are free and available to everyone is, I think, astounding. And it's something you forget about day to day, that you have this ability to create a rich data map for free of your customer data and the impact you are having with your customers in real time. Well, real time, as long as you're updating it. It's not, what you can do for free is really powerful. And I think engaging your customers and embedding a map on your website, a Google map that has rich data on it, so you can really see, we're doing good things, but here's who we're doing it with, and exactly where you can see the impact that our work is doing, I think is really powerful. Have you guys played with Google Maps to do this yet? Rich data stuff?
I'm pretty excited though.
You had done. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
I did one for a client last year that was a lot of fun. I mean, they do. It's a company that places speech paths in schools that have run out of funding and can't find hires, and so they do contract speech pathologists, and so we put together one of these rich maps to show all the placements, and you click on a little bubble and it pops up, and you see not only details on the placement, on the location or the district or the school with a photo of the school and contact information for the school. You also see, the headshot of the specific contractor, what days of the week they're going to be there, that sort of thing. Now, that map was a private map. We didn't use this as a promotional tool. It was an internal tool, but it just got me thinking about how all the wonderful things you can do with Google Maps, and it's worth exploring more, because it's just way too easy not to take advantage of it. That's my tool.
Like it.
Love
it. That's a great one.
It's a great one.
I just wanted to say that I do think my tool's feeling a little neglected and might need to be brought out in the open and shared a little bit.
Good. Share it.
OpenFacebookSearch.com. we had talked about maybe doing this next week, and I think we should. So I just could brief mention. I just thought, I'm going to check this out because this would be a good one next week. And one of the popular searches on Open Facebook Search, which, by the way, is just a way to search, people's updates on Facebook that I guess they've made public.
Drunk last night.
Drunk last night is fabulous. Yeah,
it is.
Rachel Philpott says, my drunk twin went out last night and made me look bad. I hate when she does that.
That's awesome.
And Casey Kling got so drunk last night that she woke up naked in bed with Junior, and now her ass is killing her.
Oh,
it says.
Really?
So that's public for the world. Sorry, there's many, but I'll just stop.
There are many
right there.
that are far worse than that one. OpenFacebookSearch.com. I can't believe we're promoting this, but
yeah.
And you can even embed these search results in your own website. So,
I was thinking about doing that one.
That's hilarious.
Drunk last night. Yeah.
Why not?
Nice.
Wow. Why don't I do? Hold on. Drunk last night, Salt Lake. Let's just see who I know. No, nothing.
Nobody.
How about let's do this. Let's do drunk Salt Lake. Let's see who's drunk in Salt Lake. Oh, lots of people.
Well,
wow.
Drunk
I thought
last
we weren't going to
night.
actually do this on the show.
I know. This has become a meta
Stop!
discussion. Yeah. Okay.
I'm sipping my lip.
So that's what we have for tools. Anything else we need to talk about, people?
I don't think so.
All right, let's close it out then, shall we? It's been a good discussion. I'm so glad we had Maria on. Let's see, Dane Christensen, where do people find you?
Altadane on Twitter and strike10media.com.
Megan Strand.
At Megan Strand on Twitter, and I do tweet, unlike Dane, and encouraged.com, INCOURAGED.
Awesome. And I am at Pete Wright on Twitter and at fifthandmain.com. You can find out everything you want to do about the show at thenakedmarketers.com. You can follow us on Twitter at Naked Markets, and we encourage you to do so and write things to us. Nice things. We like those. Also, find us in the iTunes store. Just do a search for The Naked Marketers. You will find us. Subscribe to us. It's the easiest way to get the show every single solitary week that it comes out. On behalf of Dane and Megan, I'm Pete. This has been another exciting, action-packed edition of The Naked Marketers.